And good morning, everybody. We are live. Congratulations. You made it through this week ending on Friday the 13th. Ooh, bet you didn't think about that, did you? Anyway, we're glad you're here, and we're very happy that you're working in food safety and food quality and making amazing products. And it's a lonely job. And if no one says thank you, Campbell and I are going to say that to you here today. Thanks. We really appreciate everything that you do out there to keep our food safe. Absolutely. So if you're new to the chat, welcome. Pull up a seat. This is, of course, the Food Safety Chat Live. And every week at 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I have the distinct pleasure of bringing on a food safety expert to talk about all things food safety. And I'm very happy to have this gentleman back on with me, Campell Mitchell. How are you doing today, sir?
Hi, Brian. Hi, everyone.
So Campbell, we've known each other here a little bit, and so he's done some amazing things in his career, and we're going to be getting a little bit into that here today. But as everybody's filing in, so Elena, good to see you. Of course, I am in beautiful Loveland, Colorado, where we're having a very mild time of year. Very little snow. It's going to be almost 50 degrees here in Colorado. But Campbell, I think where you are, you're not quite experiencing that, are you?
I'm in Chicago today. It's very cold, but no snow, unfortunately. So, but I came over from Michigan. We had about a foot of snow yesterday. So I love the snow. I lived in the Middle East for 15 years, so it's good to see the snow.
It is. I wouldn't want to live somewhere where it's the same all the time. I like the seasons. It's, there's pluses and minuses to both, but yeah, the fall is my favorite. Yeah, September, going into October.
An unfortunate aspect I did notice is, as you see the seasons, you notice that you're getting older because you see the year passing, you see the time passing.
Yeah. Well, and that's a funny thing too, right? Is as you will say, as you mature, you would hear from your grandparents when you're younger that, oh my goodness, time flies. And it's true. As you get older, time moves quicker, or the perception of time moves quicker. And it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
So people are filing in here. So Tim, good to see Tim.
I'm sorry. The portion of your life that 1 year represents gets smaller and smaller. So
yeah, that's very, very true. So it's always a good thing when Tim is in Tennessee. So that means he's traveling for the week. He survived his traveling. Jordan, good to see you. Jane, nice. Welcome. Nice to see you here as well. So we were preparing for the chat here, and I was trying to find, once I realized, Campbell, that it was Friday the 13th, I tried to find a decent Friday the 13th dad joke. No luck. It was all it was Halloween type dad jokes. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work. And there was like kind of like goofy jokes like, does Friday the 13th ever fall on Halloween? No, of course not. It's not the 31st. Jokes like that it's like, not up to the standard my audience expects here relative to dad jokes. So I do have a dad joke that is more relevant. So Campbell and I both work and have worked in the dairy industry. So I came up with a dairy dad joke. So, all right, here goes the dad joke, everybody. Campbell, why do cows have hooves instead of feet?
I don't know. Why do cows have hooves instead of feet?
Because they lack toes.
I like that one.
Dairy jokes.
I gotta remember that one.
Yeah. So moving on to, of course, the next stage of our chat, which is everybody join us for, Campbell's writing down the joke.
Yeah.
So join us for a drink of your favorite beverage, everybody. Cheers. Oh, nice. Nice.
My breakfast.
That was good. So we got a ton to go over here, and everybody's Larry liked the dad joke. Thank you. Elena liked it too. Okay, good. I picked well. Exactly. So with that, as Campbell and I were preparing for the chat here, I definitely wanted to pull on his expertise because every time I talk with you, Campbell, you've got an amazing background in everything that you've done. So can you kind of like just kind of give everybody a high profile view of your career and all the places you've worked at?
Yeah, so I've started my career in New Zealand, so people can probably tell from my accent, but I'm now living in Michigan in the US. I started with Fonterra in New Zealand. Well, actually, no, I tell a lie. I was a microbiologist, and I had a part-time job at the hospital, public hospital, in the STD clinic. And I decided I didn't want to go into hospital career, so I joined the food industry. And then I worked for a chilled lamb processor, and then Fonterra in New Zealand, New Zealand's oldest cheese factory, and became the world's largest spray dryer milk powder plant. So huge transformation in culture in that organisation. And then I worked for Nestle in New Zealand for several years, doing multiple product groups: Nescafe, Milo, Maggi, 2-minute noodles, sweet condensed milk, etc. Then became foods in New Zealand, Goodman Fielder in Australia, and then I worked for Almarai in Saudi Arabia for 9 years. I was the group compliance manager for Almarai. Then I moved to Dubai. So everybody that lives in Saudi Arabia wants to move to Dubai. So Dubai is sort of the hub for the Middle East, India and Africa. I was working for Kerry, looking after Middle East, India and Africa. And Kerry, as people in the food industry know, but not many consumers know, it's a large global ingredients company. And then I was a consultant, food safety and quality director for Tiger Brands in South Africa, largest food and beverage company in South Africa. And now I'm working for Fairlife in the US.
Yeah, fantastic. And I saw too recently in the news that Fairlife is expanding. You guys are building a new plant or an expansion?
Up in upstate New York, in Webster, state-of-the-art dairy processing facility, twice the size of our other two factories. Going to be huge. It's really looking forward. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so you'll be spending a decent amount of time in upstate New York, as they like to call it. I lived in Buffalo for 6 years. So yeah, nice area, super nice people. Yeah, you don't want to be there in winter though, that's for sure. But I
like it.
No.
I'm good.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic background. And it's kind of funny. I was laughing to myself because you and I, in the beginning of our careers, kind of followed a similar path. So when I got out of school, so I worked as a microbiologist, a technician working in a medical device company. And I spent my whole day in a clean room. And I'm like, yeah, this is not fun. And I started working as a microbiologist for a food company here in Denver, Leprino Foods. And that's how my food career started. And it's funny as we look back, as we're kind of reminiscing here on this Friday the 13th, you never know. It's always surprising as you look back now how these things progress, and there's no way you could have predicted the path that we've taken.
And you got to take the ups and the downs. You know, I was made redundant in Australia, looking for a job in the paper. Saw a job in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia with this company, Armentrout. I'd never heard of, didn't know who they were. And it was the best thing I ever did. They were on a huge growth trajectory, and became the largest food and beverage company in the Middle East, with dairy, bakery, poultry, infant nutrition, and really enjoyed my time there. So you never know what's around the next corner. One door shuts, another door opens.
Absolutely. Oh, and that's a good point too. I mean, Campbell, is that sometimes we all think that our careers kind of have this nice even progression, and that's not true either. You're kind of going along, and then to your point, you take that risk and you go to kind of that next level, and it's super stressful. It's extremely challenging. You go into this new role with these higher responsibilities, and you're like, oh my, what did I do? Right? It's super scary. And then that's just kind of how it goes, and then you move up to that next level. So yeah, a little bit of career advice here on this Friday is that you have to take those chances. So if you have that opportunity, take it.
And it's really great to see people following you. You know, I think that's the biggest reward you get in your career is mentoring and coaching people and helping them develop in their career. And you do have to take those risks, but you have to be prepared. You know, so you got to build your own opportunity. You know, opportunity knocks for those that are listening. So you need to be ready when the door knocks.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what's kind of cool about the community we're building here as well. As I look through the names of the people who are attending here, yeah, that next generation of food safety professionals are coming along, and we're here to help. So part of that, and this gets into our talk here for today, is learning from our mistakes and figuring it out. And part of what we lament here on the chat, Campbell, is a lot of times a big recall happens and we don't hear anything about it. We're like, oh my goodness, what happened at, what happened at Bluebell? What happened at Boar's Head? And we talk about these issues and we guess and we try and figure out what's going on, and we read 483s and warning letters and we look at the tea leaves, but the curtain isn't pulled back. It's really, really hard to figure out what's going on behind the scenes, which is what we're going to kind of talk about today. And now with that, we still need to be judicious in what we talk about because we need to make sure to maintain confidentiality and all these type of things. But I mean, what we wanted to talk about here today was a very important step in your career that you were involved with, and that was, as you'd mentioned earlier, Campbell, was Tiger Brands. And so first off, who in America, we never heard of Tiger Brands before their big recall, but who is Tiger Brands?
They're a very interesting company, actually. So Tiger Brands is based in Johannesburg in South Africa. They're more than 100 years old. The name Tiger came from Tiger oats. So they were producing oats. They imported rolled oats and sold them. So in Africa, oats is a very staple part of the diet. And they've grown to be the largest food and beverage company and FMCG company in Southern Africa. They have leading brands in every aisle of the supermarket, so everything from fly spray to baby food. And I'd hesitate to say that that's probably one of the contributing factors to the recall, was they had fingers in too many pies. And I see that in a lot of companies in the Middle East as well, that they tend to, and you see it in Southern Asia, they tend to want to be part of everything. So I think it's important to have the right level of resources and specialists and knowledge, and you need to know what business you're in and what the risks are, and resource it appropriately. But you also need a sort of an enterprise-wide sort of culture of risk management, that right up to the CEO, that they understand the business and what they're doing and what they're in. And when you've got, I think they had more than almost 1,000 different SKUs.
Wow.
It's very hard for you to be understanding of all the risks for all those different types of products. Everything from home care type products to like I said, fly spray and pest prevention products, and then also at the time it was bologna, which is like a sliced luncheon sausage product. And they don't make that product anymore. But the problem is, with these large brands, is the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And it's all very well for one small luncheon sausage company in Africa or Australia or somewhere to have a problem. And then that company, there's been numerous examples of those types of companies have problems and end up closing their doors. But you never see that company's name on the newspaper when they're owned by a larger conglomerate. So I always say that with to my when I'm doing food safety and HACCP training, we're in Almarai, we had several minor brands, like Luzine bakeries and things. And I'd always say, well, if we had a problem in one of our bakeries and we had a food safety issue, it wouldn't be Luzine Bakery that people say in the newspaper, oh, the Luzines had a problem. It would be Almarai, the largest food and beverage company in the Middle East. They've got a problem. So I think it's that brand risk that is not often always understood at those top levels when they have these multiple different parts of the organization. It's very hard to keep track of. And
Right.
it's understandably so.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, because and this gets into when you're large like that, a lot of times too, you have co-manufacturing locations that are making your brand for you. And there was a large recall in Canada recently with Silk soy milk and Great Value soy milk for Listeria, where people got sick. And this was co-manufactured at a manufacturer in the Ontario area. Nobody knows who that is, right? They know Silk was
Yep.
involved, right? So that's directly hitting at the brand.
Yep. And for me, as a food safety professional, that's the biggest risk, I think, to our brand, is when we outsource. We use a co-manufacturer, or even packaging suppliers. So packaging is often overlooked. You got food contact packaging that is goes straight to the product after it's been cooked or after it's been processed, but that's the first thing the consumers touch, and that touches the product. So quite often we overlook our packaging supplier, our co-manufacturer, third-party manufacturer, and then always the distribution chain and the third-party logistics. Things can happen. I remember in South Africa we had some bandits turned up at one of our warehouses, held the warehouse staff hostage with machine guns, and pulled up with trucks and forklifts and took all the product out of the warehouse, and they held the warehouse product hostage. They said, you have to pay us lots of money before we'll give you all your product back. But there's been a lot of cases, and that brings me back to the food safety recall in South Africa with Tiger Brands. A lot of the cases were because the product was discarded. They told people to dispose of this product from this date to this date, or this brand, or whatever. But it was out there in the rubbish bin, and people were so poor and hungry that they were going into the rubbish and eating the product that was discarded for food safety issues. So that caused a lot of flow-on damage to the brand, and a lot of the causes of the diseases and some of the deaths.
Wow. Yeah. And so with this polony, it's kind of interesting because how much this parallels Boar's Head, because in this issue, right? So polony sounds very similar to liverwurst, which was the issue with
sausage type. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the South African issue, and this is one of the biggest food safety issues that I'm aware of. So there was 1,065 cases of Listeria, 218 people died.
Yep.
And a lot of those were children, weren't they?
Yep. Oh. It was very tragic, and they're still going through the courts. So, obviously I can't say too much about it, but the government was very proactive on the testing and the traceability and everything. So that's something to be said for the health department in South Africa, that they were so proactive, and that's part of the reason why it became so widely publicized. I'm sure there's situations like this occur in other countries where we don't have such good track and trace, and we're not able to determine the cause of a lot of the illnesses and deaths.
Yeah, that's a good point. So a lot of times it's kind of like pest control. If you see a mouse, that means there's probably 10 or 15 more that you don't see. And in those areas, I'm sure lots more people got sick and that we never even knew about. Terrible. So you had a hand in helping them after. So this recall happened and everything. This was before you, right?
Yeah. So, and I wasn't even part of the recovery. There's a very good friend of mine was brought in as a food safety director to help turn them around, and he did a fantastic job, Eduardo. And but I was in South Africa. I was recruited, but it was going to take me 6 to 8 months to get my visa to go to work there. So I was waiting to move there, So I was still working sort of remotely from Dubai, but certainly involved in a lot of the understandings of their organizational structure and improvements with food safety and quality. And they came along leaps and bounds. I think one of the key learnings is really bringing quality up to the C-suite. So we had a chief operations officer who had a very strong fundamental understanding of food safety and quality, and he was really the responsible for turning it around, and he did a fantastic job as well. Reminds me of Kerry. Kerry, when I started with Kerry, previous to that, they had also had a large incident in North America, and then they brought in a chief quality and food safety officer, and I've seen a lot of talk recently about why do we not see quality and food safety in the C-suite, and quite often it's not until after something major happens that companies end up bringing this in. And it's like I was talking about before. I think you've got to have that understanding of risk right at the top level, and companies very much are taking on board sustainability. You're seeing chief sustainability officers, but for a food company, food safety is probably the biggest risk that can face the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you came in with Tiger Brands, then Campbell, what did you tackle first then? So you're talking about making sure that senior leadership was involved. What else did you look at in the company?
A lot of it's the knowledge and understanding. So food safety knowledge, food safety understanding, doing the right testing. We also had some very good consultants came in to do risk assessments on the different businesses, because they did all sorts of things like peanut butter and jellies, candies and all sorts of things, which those types of products, we've started to learn a lot more about the food safety requirements for those types of products. I remember when I was working for Nestle, we were making Milo and a hot chocolate drink, and it became sort of widely known around the world that Salmonella could survive in dry environments, and up till then everybody was thinking, keep it dry and it's safe. So I'm showing my age there, because that's about probably 20 years ago now, but still I remember talking to starting doing the first environmental swabs, and that's something that people just don't appreciate. Same when I was in Armentrout, we had a CEO who bought some 25 kg bags of milk powder, and he wanted to pack them off into 2 kg bags of milk powder, because then he could sell them for 10 times the price. It was a really, really profitable business. But with no food safety controls, just pack it off in the warehouse, like open the bag and tip it in, and yep, away you go. I said, no, sorry, you can't do that. You need to, let's put some hygiene barriers in place. So I think people don't understand the risks. And so I think with Tiger Brands, a lot of the implementation of the turnaround was the education, the understanding, putting in qualified people in key roles like quality, food safety, auditing, microbiology, sensory, supplier audits, supplier management, risk management, those types of roles, which previous to that they really didn't have a lot of exposure. So it was probably likely to happen, if not in bologna and something else, because of this lack of understanding of a lot of the risks.
Well, and they have had other issues since this polony as well, right? So they had a gigantic recall with canned goods. So I think, was it 2 years worth of canned vegetables and other products that were recalled because of bad cans from a supplier?
Yeah. And I think that's something that they, sometimes companies do recalls because they have to, they're forced to. Other times they do it because they're taking responsibility, and I think that is probably a really good example with Tiger Brands. The first one, that's still being argued about in the courts, who was at fault and what happened. that with the cans, that was a proactive recall because one of the staff noticed that there was some leaking cans, and they went back and looked at the supplier and said, well, hey, the supplier doesn't have good controls, potentially all this product is affected. And really there was no apparent food safety risk. Like leaking cans happen, it does known to happen in the canning industry. I used to work in canning in Nestle and also with McCain Foods, and potentially it could have been, but there was no illnesses or injuries or anything reported, so it was a proactive recall, and I think that's something that they could be proud of, that they took a huge hit to the bottom line, but they took that proactive response.
Yeah, no, that is good. And I think really that kind of gets back to what you had mentioned earlier, which I want to kind of circle back to, Campbell, is when you went in and working with Tiger Brands, you first started talking with the people, right? The first thing that you mentioned when I asked you about that was, okay, I went and talked with the chief operating officer. He had a really good background. He was very strong in that area. And that's key, right? Is that it's the people side of things that is important.
Yep.
And a lot of times, especially at the senior level, the CEO is brought in, and a lot of times, Campbell, people don't understand this, is that the board of directors is there to lead the company. A lot of times you don't see them. You don't know who they are. They never show up. They have meetings somewhere else, but they're the bosses. They hire the CEO. The CEO is then responsible for putting together the team that hits the objectives that the board of directors have put in place. And it's a CEO's job then to be the executive who is then leading this whole effort within the company. And most times, I won't say most times, but a lot of times they are hired because of their ability to run companies, not in their ability to manage food. So a lot of times you'll see this in the food industry is you'll have a very strong executive who comes into the food industry from automotive or something completely foreign to food manufacturing. And the basics of how they do their job are the same, right? It's like, okay, what's our P&L? What's our efficiency? What's our yields? How are these plans being executed? What's our marketing visions? All of these type of things that the CEO needs to worry about. And they have no understanding of food safety, because if you come from automotive, I mean, okay, seat belts or things like this, but food safety, what? They have no idea. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges in food manufacturing, is that educational level at that C-suite, as you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, Darren Detweiler has done some really good work on that recently. He's really he did a nice food safety chat just recently, talking about recalls, and we invited him to come in and talk to our quality leadership team. So I think there's companies that do it really well and understand, and then there's other companies that it's like just not on their radar, and those are the companies that we have to worry about. I have noticed something different in the sort of the culture in North America versus Europe. With North America has a very much an inspection focused sort of food safety regime, and I think there's a need for a lot more collaboration and more education, and do it for the right reasons. So I think if industry feels that they're sort of threatened by the regulators, then they will sort of clam up. Whereas if there's more of an open forum for discussion, then you can be more transparent about your opportunities and threats, and you can help get advice on how to mitigate those risks. So I think that probably has an impact on the C-suite as well, that they almost like they don't want to know. It's better to be ignorant, and then nobody can blame you. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the case, because a lot of times the CEO especially is unaware of the Park Doctrine here in the U.S., which is the legal doctrine going back to the 70s that says the CEO of a food company is personally responsibility for the execution of that information, and they don't know. They don't know that.
No,
they think that they can delegate this off, and that the COO and the QA will take care of it and everything's good. No, that's not how it works. And a lot of times, to your point, you bring in these executives and they have their toolkit of what they're looking at. And to Duncan's point here, where he is saying that, short-term profit for food safety, right? And in their defense, the executives don't even understand that, right? If they're looking at it from from a company standpoint, it's like, okay, we're coming up on Q4, forecasts are a little bit low. Let's put out some promotions and let's do X. And they're just looking at it strictly from a brand management standpoint without a real understanding of the implications for food safety in that decision-making process. So the worst time for food safety is the busiest time.
Yeah.
And if you're pushing the company to make more food, to hit the stock price goal for the end of the year, so everybody gets their bonuses and all these business decisions that take place, that can have an unintended consequence on the manufacturing side. Because as well as I do, corners get cut because you don't have the time.
And it's very hard for people to see that cost or that risk element. It's like that where in culture, food safety culture, you talk about the iceberg of culture, and there's what's under the water. Well, when I did that in South Africa, they don't get icebergs in South Africa, so we called it the hippopotamus. So you'd have the little eyes. That's what you see, and then what's under the water of the hippopotamus is the real culture. So I think that's the problem, is when you start cutting costs, you don't see that effect. It's all hidden, and it's very hard to get a return on investment for food safety. Quality and food safety. I like Deming. It's something that is measured in decades. It's not measured in quarters. So it's the company can be the most successful company in the world, growing huge fast, cutting costs left, right, and center, making lots of profit. Everybody's happy investing, and at the end of the day, after 10 years, they have one incident and they're out of business. So, and probably getting sued and taken to jail. But that risk is there. It was there, hanging over them all the time, like the sword of Damocles, but nobody knew. So I think that's the job of quality professionals, and we need to make people aware of those risks and aware of the potential. But nobody, and then that makes us the baddie, the bearer of bad news. We're doom and gloom sayers.
Right. And that's the hard part in what we do in food safety is we don't want to be the "I told you so" guys, right? Because nobody likes that. We need to be out front in these type of things. And to your point, Campbell, and I want to reemphasize this, make sure everybody got this, is that this isn't an instant feedback system. In that, if you have a corrosive impact in your food safety programs that you don't see, it's slowly breaking down over time, and you think everything is going smoothly, and at some point in time it goes past that event horizon. It reaches a point of no return, and that's when things just implode. And then, to your point, I always use the terminology I use on this as a quick phrase is, well, we never had a problem before, right? And when you hear executives in a company say that, that's a huge warning bell.
I always use the example of running a red light in the traffic. Like, you could probably run a red light every day for several years and not have an issue, but one day you're going to get smashed.
It's going to get back to you, because these type of impacts are cumulative. And really, that's the big challenge we have in food safety, and it's something that we talk about here on the chat quite a bit, Campbell, is getting outside of our technical bubble and reaching out to these groups. So, for example, the procurement group at Tiger Brands, who was buying the cans for the vegetables, making sure that they understand. And part of this is giving them the tools and educating them, so that I refer to this as the first pass. There's certain basic things that suppliers need to do, and if they can't meet those basic things, go find somebody else. If they can't get over that first hurdle, they're not going to meet the other hurdles. It doesn't matter what they're offering. And if you can teach your procurement group to think that way, that saves you a ton of work.
And we recently had an issue in the Middle East with temperature abuse in the distribution. But the audit, it's a low risk warehouse, maybe once a year, once every 2 years. How often do you audit your finished product warehouses, especially outsourced ones? And yet the sales guy was going there once a month. He should have noticed that the temperature was wrong for the product. So again, it's quality is everybody's business. It's in everything you do, and everybody needs to take. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we have, is getting everybody to understand that it's very easy for people to just say that's not my job. That's quality's job. Yeah. They like to keep us around so that they can blame us when things go wrong.
Exactly. Well, and you made a very good point here too, in your, when you went to help Tiger Brands and work with them after this issue, you said something very important here that I want to make sure people caught as well, is most of what we do in food safety is plant-based. It's like, okay, what is the plant doing? How is the plant training their people? What certifications does the plant have? To Larry's point here, Lean Six. Somebody earlier was talking about, Larry's talking about GFSI as well. Is okay, we're gonna do everything at the plant. It's the plant's job to maintain this. Well, somewhat, but corporate gets missed. And if you need to move this upstream as far as you can. So, for example, the senior leadership, to your point, Campbell, comes down and says, okay, for next year, we're entering a growth phase. We need to improve our revenue, and we're going to do that with new product launches. R&D, get out there and launch new products. And R&D is like, okay, right? And R&D loves to create new products. And so they're figuring out new things and new products, and they're whipping this up. And their mandate is get these new products out in the market as quickly as possible. And a lot of times, Campbell, in quality and food safety, we're downstream. And we only find out about this when it's a month away from launch. And all of a sudden, the R&D guys are saying, hey, we're heading out to the plant to do some trials, and we're going to do some pilot runs. And we're like, well, what? What do you, oh, no, yeah, we're launching 10 new products. And it's just like, no, I've got a million questions.
Yeah.
Too late. You need to be up front, don't you?
Yeah. I've seen that happen so many times. We were very fortunate in Almarai. We were able to implement an integrated management system from, well, Almarai is unique because we're the world's largest vertically integrated dairy company. So they grow grass in Arizona and Argentina. They have 180,000 cows in the middle of the desert, and they distribute their product fresh every day to 100,000 customers throughout the Middle East. And they own the fridges inside the stores where they merchandise the product. So complete end-to-end dairy supply chain. But with the integrated management system, we had quality auditors within R&D, within procurement, within capital projects, within supply chain, sales, distribution, farming. So I think companies that really hold quality and food safety dear, and there's some really good ones out there. You see quality populated within the organization. It's not just stuck to the factory, and that's probably the biggest takeaway message we can give today, is take quality out of the factory.
Exactly. And Cortland and I use the same terminology, design control, right? That is this whole process within a company of how do you create or manage or change within your company? How do you create these designs? And a lot of times there was a very wise project manager I worked with in the past, and he said, the new products that you launch aren't the most important things. It's the products that you kill or stop that are the important things.
Yeah.
And you have to have robust systems in place, because everybody thinks that their ideas are a good idea. And you end up with all these products that are launching that probably shouldn't be launched. So for example, marketing and R&D come up with a new product that has a new allergen. Oh my God. Hey, wait, what? What do you mean a new allergen, right? So now you're introducing a new allergen into your production facilities, and they don't understand it's probably going to cost tens of millions of dollars to redesign everything to control that new allergen.
Yep.
All of your profits from this new product are gone because of that. and they
Yep.
don't understand that.
Yep. Design for quality, quality by design, and then food safety by design. And that was a huge initiative we did at Kerry too, is really getting the R&D. So, and the problem with R&D, and I've got a lot of respect for R&D. A lot of my friends are good R&D directors, but they're subject matter experts like us. So subject matter experts find it difficult to take advice from other subject matter experts. So I think that collaboration and involvement right upstream, and that stage gate type process where you get sign off from all the stakeholders is important.
Yeah, no, and that's a very good point, is that people are looking at things from their perspective, right? And that's what they're judged on. When you look at their job description and you look at their objectives, and importantly, their bonuses, it's focused on their roles. It's not focused on yours. And so part of what we do in quality and food safety is we get to go kind of poke around in everybody's stuff, which, to your point, not often welcome, right? It's like, go away, go do something else. But if you can show the benefit to that, I remember one time I avoided a disaster one time just out of sheer luck, in that R&D was doing a lot of new product development in a company I worked for. And I happened to be on the floor in the plant walking around, and R&D people were all over the place. I'm like, what's going on here? And there were some new R&D people who didn't understand the processes we had in place. And they were preparing, on the floor, preparing to do a product trial, a new product launch that had a new allergen. So this was a dairy plant, and they were introducing a new allergen. And I went over, I'm like, hey, what you guys doing? Right. And that's a huge, right? That's an important phrase in our toolbox is, hey, what you guys doing?
Yeah.
And they started explaining to me what they're doing. And I told them, stop now. Everything that you're doing, stop. And they looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I started explaining to them why what they were doing was so dangerous with this allergen. And they're like, their response was, oh, no, this is just a trial. And I'm like, no, the allergens don't care. They do not care that this is a trial. That is an allergen. Get it the hell out of my plant now.
Yeah.
And that became a very good learning experience. And the head of R&D and I had a very long conversation, and we improved because of that. But man, we were that close to a major issue.
Yep. And that's the number one cause of most recalls is undeclared allergens.
Yes.
It's a huge food safety risk. When I was at McCain Foods, we were making frozen dinners. We made 40 different SKUs. We had about 3,000 different suppliers, and the HACCP team was saying, "Oh, we're going to have all this color-coded equipment and big clean downs between products," and because each product had its own set of different allergens. And I got Kerry ingredients to make me a little sachet that contained all the 8 allergens, and I added it to every product that we made, and we included it on the ingredient label. We got marketing to approve, and so every product included every allergen. So I didn't have to do any CIP for allergens or color coding. I was very happy. My factory manager thought that was a great idea, but obviously it needs. But I think the key with that was it was a business decision.
Right.
It was decided right upstream as part of the product development, as part of the packaging design. As marketing involved, we decided that people that have allergens don't normally eat frozen dinners anyway. It's not something that they would consume, even if it was properly labeled. So we made sure that every product contained every allergen, and we just said that these products contain allergens, and that's because it was going to cost us a huge fortune to do all the segregation.
Right, and in some cases, I mean, you can't. I mean, the best cleaning in the world is not going to remove the risk. So, for example, sesame seeds, right?
That's a hot topic. I used to work in the baking bakery, and making like sesame seeded buns, and then trying to make seedless buns with no risk that the sesame seeds are in the bun. It's impossible. You cannot do it.
It is. It's impossible. And so part of that, to your point, Campbell, is sometimes, and you're taking the right mindset in that approach is how do I protect our allergenic consumers? How do I make sure that they don't accidentally get an allergen that they shouldn't get? And Yeah, you have to, and I think that's a good point that you brought up there. You have to get outside of your company and think about it from the consumer standpoint. Is okay, what do the consumers care about for food safety? What do the consumers care about for quality? And how do I help teach the other pieces in the organization that important criteria? And this is where consumer complaints are gold, right? So nobody likes complaints, but the consumers are teaching the organization what they do not like. And most people, we're consumers, right? We don't talk about this. It's like we get a bad experience. We're like, oh God, no, damn it. And you just grumble about it and you move on. But some people will complain. And the rule of thumb I use is it's generally around 10x, right? So every person that complains, at least 10 other people had the same issue and didn't complain. They just bought something else.
I've heard 25 times. There's been studies that saying at least 25 people don't complain for everyone that does.
And in the age of social media now, they're taking pictures of it and they're posting it on X. They're posting it on LinkedIn and saying, look at this garbage product that this company makes. Part of what we need to do in quality is take that data and educate the other areas of the company in those defects. But there's a client company that I work with who produces a fantastic beverage product. And Pareto rule is an amazing thing, right? 80-20. 80% of the complaints in this company come from two categories: taste and texture. They don't care about anything else. Taste and texture rule the day. If you screw one of those two things up, the consumers are going to let us know. So then you can then use that in the organization to teach everyone else why those things are so important.
100%. And I think there's a lot of in most food organizations, there's a lot of focus on getting the product out the door. And once it's gone, they sort of forget about it. That customer feedback is, if you are, selling lemonade at the end of your driveway and giving it to them, you'd get that immediate feedback. So I think we forget that there's consumers out there sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're getting that feedback from consumers, if they have the ability to put verbatims, so they can answer the questionnaire, and that's fine. Yes, no, good, bad, whatever. But always have room on your consumer feedback. Ideally talking with people, but if there's other methodologies, okay, that's secondary. When you get that feedback, read it. When I work with companies, I always read the consumer complaints. And if you can, have your quality managers in your plants send out those complaints for those particular plants. Have your quality managers read them and post those complaints in the plant. One of the best programs I had is we would do that. We would every month we would take the consumer complaints and we would print them out and we would post them on a bulletin board outside of the employee locker room. And one month I was late. I didn't get him in on time. I was traveling or whatever. I had employees in the plant emailing me and saying, "Where's our complaints? I want to see." And you don't need to think about that in negative terms too, because if we had consumers that were giving us praise, we would post that too. And it was fantastic feedback for the employees from both of those sides, because then they were getting direct feedback on the things that they were making, those precious products that they were making and how they were performing.
Taking that back to food safety, one of the best examples I saw for reminding people that, because companies, especially like Fonterra, you're making white powder. And how is that food? It's white powder in a 25 kg bag that goes on a pallet. Like that's not food. So people are just like shipping it. It's all about production and numbers and cases. So they really wanted to bring home this idea that the product that they were producing is actually food that people are eating. And they got examples of all of the use cases where that product is being used. And they put photos of it inside the production hall, or outside in the cafeteria, and then they got the children of the employees to take photos with those products, drinking or eating those products. So it sort of brings it home that, like, would you feed this to your children? And really, that's the answer. If you can answer that question, then you've done your job with food safety.
Yep. And another parallel, I use that exact same story. right? If you cannot take this off the line and take it home and feed it to your grandchildren, I need to know, right?
Yep.
Because to your point, if you're working in operations and you're running a plant, right? I need to make 50,000 cases this week.
Yep. That's all they're thinking about. Yep.
Right. You need to help them broaden their horizons.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unique in what we do, in that, sure, we have all of these programs and all these systems and whatever else. Yeah, that's nice. It's people, right? It's the people side of things. If and this goes back to Campbell, what we were talking about earlier, right? If you're going around and wagging your finger at people and saying, you have to do this because I say so, and you have to do this because the GFSI standard says so,
yeah,
good luck. It's not going to work.
As soon as your back's turned, they'll go back to doing it the way they always did it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He comes to the plant once a quarter. That's the VP. You know, he'll be back in another quarter. Don't worry about him.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. So with companies that go through these large type of recalls, like Tiger Brands, what's, as we're kind of thinking about here, the conclusions, this is great, right? We're having a wide range discussion here, which I think is important. When you look at particular examples of companies like this, what lessons do they need to learn? I mean, at a high level within the company, and this is what we call food safety culture.
Yeah.
What did they need to learn that they didn't understand? What can we simplify this for people so that they can take this away?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of detail you can go into, but I think in a nutshell, it's that risk management. For me, it's and with Tiger Brands, the board got set up and took notice. It had a huge impact on the shareholder share price, and so I've never seen a board so engaged in food safety when I was engaged with them. So every quarter, as the food safety director, we had to present the results of all our environmental monitoring, product sampling, food safety culture surveys, lab testing, all that sort of stuff to the board of directors, and that's quite rare in most food organizations. But I think it shouldn't come to that. They should have already been aware of the risk that these types of products have, and that's probably the one thing that I think the food companies need to understand is risk management is not just about brand risk, but that food safety risk. And if you're in the food business, there's no bigger risk to. And going back to sustainability, when they talk about what's important for the world and sustainability, food safety is actually the number one sustainability metric for food companies. It's got the biggest impact for consumers, and it's got the biggest impact for the company. So I think we get tied up in all these other stuff about sustainability, but really you got to stick to your knitting. The biggest risk to the food company is food safety.
Yeah, all of the waste, all of the losses associated with food safety issues. I mean, we can address these things correctly. So
yep.
Let's say that you're back consulting and someone gives you a call and says, "Oh my goodness, Campbell, we have a giant issue. We need your help."
Yep.
What's the first thing you would do when that company reaches out to you?
Yeah, honestly, depend on the situation, but mostly I'd go and visit the factory. I'm very hands-on. I like to touch and feel, and most auditors and food safety professionals, within half an hour you've been inside a facility, you can tell what the culture is like. It doesn't get written in the GFSI audit report, but everybody knows, that does the maintenance guy always walk into the factory, covered in stuff from the maintenance workshop? the 10 people walk past the hand wash station and nobody washes their hands. Does people only put their hairnet on when you're walking past, and then and a lot of food companies, they don't realize that there's all these sort of leaders within the company that are not necessarily the organizational leaders. They're the culture leaders, that they're hidden leaders. And so you can pick up on who's driving this. Is it the naysayers, or is it the do-gooders? and then I would go to the senior management and give feedback, frank feedback, and work out, sometimes a change of management is needed when you're trying to recover from a critical incident like that. But quite often it's just retraining, re-engaging, re-understanding of the priorities, and it all comes back to the risk management, and hopefully the business sits up and takes notice and understands that food safety is worth investing in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the first thing you don't do is go look at their last GFSI certificate and really, wow, you actually talk with people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Certificates don't make product. People make product. And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just agreeing with you. The audits are we've sort of gone into very much a sort of an auditing for compliance type mentality. We have to get the certificate, we have to get that so we can sell the product. I find organizations that engage with AIB, American Institute of Baking, they have a very proactive approach to food safety. You're not doing it for anybody else other than for yourself. And they're the toughest auditor you can possibly find. Everybody, any GFSI facility that I've ever come across, if I sent AIB in there, they would fail the audit. I guarantee it. And so I don't work for AIB, but I'm a strong proponent of theirs. I've used them for many, many years. 9 out of the 10 largest food companies in the world use AIB to help improve food safety within the facility, and it helps with the food safety culture, the engagement, but the problem is that requires that high level understanding of the C-suite to spend the money to do the audits, to say that this is important and to follow up. If you don't have that high level leadership, then it's very hard to drive that from the quality manager at a site type level.
Yep. No, I agree. And yeah, if you're investigating in a plant, trying to find root cause, number one, to your point, is finding out who the influencers are in the plant. Who are those key personnel in the plant who are actually getting things done, and talk with them and say, okay, what's going well here? What's not going well? And to Austin's point, right? So with food safety culture and speak up culture, are they willing to talk with you? Number one, if they won't tell you what's going on, that's a huge red flag, and you got to fix that. And a lot of times you'll hear, Campbell, and I've heard this as well in my career, is I've told management 10 times what was wrong, and they didn't listen to me, so I gave up.
And probably what's worse is that silent fear culture, when people don't even want to say anything. And the last guy that said something, he's left the door, he's out the door. So, and I do believe there was an element of that in Tiger Brands and the old Tiger Brands that led to this, and you probably find that in most food companies that have major recalls, there's an element of fear. So people know what's going on, but they don't want to say anything.
Exactly.
And then obviously there's some of the organizations like the Peanut Corporation where it's actually criminal. The people are doing it on purpose. So that's just shocking.
Yeah. So fortunately, that's a good thing working for us, right? It is the blatant criminal activity very small, right? Very, very small. And so that's a good sign, right? We can work with these and we can fix these, but you have to talk with people, right? And you have to figure out that's where things happen, and that's where we need to focus. Programs are good and we need them, but they're a tool. That's all they are. They're a tool. So, gosh, we're almost out of time here, Campbell. Any final thoughts for everybody?
I just want to say thank you, Bryan. It's really great to talk to you again. And yeah, like really, really support what you're doing. You do a fantastic job helping the food industry focus on food safety. So really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Campbell. I appreciate all that you do as well. And of course, everyone who is joining us this week and all of these fantastic food safety professionals who are investing their time, right? They're spending an hour with us every week, Campbell, to improve their knowledge and bring things up a little bit. And I know I improve my knowledge as well too. So it's a very reciprocal relationship, and we appreciate everybody and all that you do. And with that, guys, we got to bring our chat to a close here for this week. So thanks to Campbell, my guest. Thank you, of course, everybody. Tasia, thank you for seeing you here as well. And of course, we'll join you here next week because food safety doesn't care that it's December. We're here every week. So we're going to be back at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern for the next chat, where I bring another fascinating expert like Campbell onto the show. But in the meantime, guys, everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Take care of food safety next week, and we'll see you then. So have a good one, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Have a good day.